pricing to fully understand all of the costs in Snowflake. We have two main types of cost. The first block is compute cost, and then we have also storage cost. The benefit in Snowflake is that those two main blocks are decoupled. This is what we've seen in the different layers in Snowflake, and the benefit is that we can now scale them independently. When we need more storage, we can just increase storage and we don't need to add and pay for additional compute. So like this, we only pay for what we need, and we are very scalable and get those compute and storage with a very affordable cloud prices. So Snowflake, as we have already learned, leverages the external cloud providers like AWS, Azure, and GCP, and we can benefit from those affordable cloud prices, and we can independently scale them up and down. So, of course, therefore, the pricing depends on which region and which cloud provider our account is based on. Aside to those two main blocks, we also have some data transfer costs in some situations, and therefore in the end, we also quickly mention when those data transfer costs occur. But we want to start with the main block, which is the compute cost. The compute is separated into three different parts. So we have again here three different aspects. And the main one are the active warehouses. So here we are only paying for warehouses that are active. We can also suspend them, and then we are not paying for them. So the warehouse is the standard cost that occurs with compute, and this is used for the standard query processing. So whenever we want to execute a query, we need some compute power, and this is coming from the warehouses. Additionally, we've also learned about the cloud services layer that is needed for some behind-the-scenes cloud service tasks. And of course, this is managed fully by Snowflake, and we also need to pay for this. But usually those costs are quite small, and we are not even charged for this unless those costs exceed 10% of our warehouse consumptions. Otherwise, we are not even charged for this. So usually we are actually not even charged for this, unless we have really a very low activity with our warehouses. And then we have one last block, which is the serverless. These are also some warehouses that are needed for some specific features like automatic reclustering, search optimization, and Snowpipe. And here it makes sense for those features that we also need some compute, but that it's managed by Snowflake. For example, with Snowpipe, we have some data that can be automatically loaded when a new file appears somewhere in an external cloud provider. And therefore, it can be automatically resized depending on the needs. And therefore, it makes sense that this is a serverless feature where we have no control of the warehouses, of resizing them, and so on. So this is also then managed by Snowflake. But now let's dive deeper into the main cost, which are our active warehouses. In here, we are charged for the active warehouses per time. We get a price tag per hour, but this is actually billed per second. So if we only use 30 minutes, we are also only paying for 30 minutes with always a minimum of 1 minute when we start a warehouse. So the cost again depend on the time and also on the size of the warehouse. And like this, we have three different factors that affect the cost. This is how much time, how many warehouses we have active, and then also what are the sizes of those warehouses. So in just a second, we talk about how this works exactly. But before this, we need to understand that we are not charged directly in euros or dollars, but we are actually charged in credits. So we consume those credits, and then those credits have a certain price tag. And therefore, we need to understand two things. First, how this consumption works, and then also how much do those credits cost. So let's start by understanding the consumption of the credits. This depends on the amount of time a warehouse is running and the size of the warehouse. So for example, we have the size extra small, this is the smallest, that consists of one compute node. But if we have some more complex tasks, some more complex queries, we need more compute power and we can increase the size of a warehouse. So then we have 2 compute nodes, and like this, we also now have 2 credits consumed per hour. So the number of compute nodes that are needed, this is the amount of credits we are charged per hour. And you can see once we increase the size by 1 step, we double the amount of servers that are needed and therefore also the amount of credits that are used. So like this, we can choose the size of the warehouse depending on how much compute power we need. And now, how much do those credits cost? This is now where the editions come into play. We have for the standard edition the lowest price, and then for the higher editions we have a higher price per credit. But now this is again depending on which region and which cloud provider our account is based on. So they have different prices in different regions and different platforms. So therefore, we have also different prices. And in here we can see, for example, the price of US East in AWS. And if we have another region, for example, in Frankfurt, the prices can differ. And also, if we want to know more details on this, we can go to just snowflake.com/pricing. And in here we can choose, for example, let's say AWS and US East. And we can see here, these are the prices for those different editions. But now we see that there's also storage cost. And therefore, we want to dive deeper into this in the next lecture.